How's it everyone, this is Lolcohol with my Magic Find Blade Vortex Tier 7 Cemetery Farmer. This build is great for farming juiced Tier 7 maps, not higher unfortunately, but if you've been watching streams like Garatha, you can still get ridiculously rich MFing these lower tier maps. And in this video, I'm going to go over the build. If you've already been playing my BV build, this should be a very easy swap. If you're looking for a new build, a budget MFer, I'm going to go over the build. I've included a shopping list so you can just click links to buy all the gear that you're going to need. This build is sitting, I don't want to give an exact price, but if you have 30 divines, you have enough to play this. Probably you could get away with 20 divines, but I would probably say 30. So when I say budget, it's not super cheap, but it's budget compared to many other MF builds which cost, you know, 60, 70, 80, hundreds of divines. And this, like I said, it's very comfortable farming those tier 7 maps, which you can get very rich on. So with Floss up against rare mobs, we're sitting at about 330 increased item rarity and 54% increased item quantity. You can get this up if you slot in a second Ventus, but I find this to be quite greedy. You're going to be losing a lot of damage and survivability, so I feel like just the one Ventus is good. We will go over the rest of the gear, but just put that out the way. Also, in terms of downsides, a lot of people are not fans of the Blade Vortex playstyle. You are going to have to push your Blade Vortex once every 7 seconds, which once you get used to it, doesn't feel like an issue at all, but other people feel like it's too much. Also, you do have to micromanage your Malevolence, Divine Blessing, and your Plague Bearer. So if you're looking for something that is just an auto bomber, this isn't it. You are going to have to push buttons once in a while, but yeah, once you get used to it, I find it completely smooth and fine to play. So let's go over the gear. Firstly, Cold Iron Point. This is going to be our weapon. The corruption you're looking for on this is chance to gain Unholy Might for 3 seconds on kill. You can also get one with increased damage over time, but that's more expensive and this is better. So go for your Cold Iron Point. As for gloves, Sadima's Touch with Despair on Hit Curse. This is very important. If these for some reason after this video get super expensive, you can also look for curse enemies with Temporal Chains on hit, but these currently are not too expensive. The corruption is incredibly important. You cannot skip that. You have to have curse enemies with Despair on hit. Our belt, we're going for Perandus Blazon. This thing is perfect. What we're getting more increased item quantity, a bit of fire res, increased flask effect duration, which is wonderful, and increased attributes. These are all things that this build really needs. And what you can get are corruptions like increased skill effect duration, or increased grace aura effect, or haste, or malevolence aura effect. You can even, I think I got one like this for, I bought this one for 1 divine. It's ridiculously good. Currently doesn't have enough attributes for my build, so I'm not using it, but because this is kind of off meta, this is really cheap. But I would try and find increased skill effect duration. This increases the duration of your Blade Vortex, so you don't have to push it as often. Increases the duration of your Malevolence, so try get one of these if they're not too expensive after this video, but I doubt it. Boots, just going for Goldwyrms. You want to try and get 20% increased quantity and decent resistance. You can get an uncorrupted version like this for about 35 chaos. If you do get a corruption, something like chance to suppress spell damage is excellent, or increased movement speed is also really good, or increased life regeneration while moving, but those are going to set you back a fair bit more. Our shield, we are using Sentari's Answer. This gives us another 8% increased item quantity, and we can curse enemies with Temporal Chains when we block their projectile attack damage. I wouldn't really rely on those. We're pretty much just using this for the increased item quantity. You can get decent corruptions on this also for fairly cheap. I got this 6% increased max life. I don't know, I probably paid about 5 or 10 chaos for that. So get a max roll quant. This rolls between 4 to 8%. You want to get that 8%. So if you go out looking for a corruption, make sure that it is set at 8%. Also gives us a bit of intelligence, chance to block spell damage, and a bit of energy shield. Our amulet. Main things we need on this are level of all physical skill gems, and then attributes, and maybe a bit of resistance if you need to top off. You can also use a replica Dragon Fangs if you want, but I felt like this was quite greedy. I was struggling with attributes and resistances when I was using this, so I feel like going just for a rare amulet is better. The anoint we're going for is Overcharge. This grants us Power, Frenzy, or Endurance charges on kill. This is great. Frenzy charges gives us increased damage, Endurance charges gives us more survivability, and it enables our Immortal Call to last a bit longer when it does proc, because we actually have some endurance charges which can be consumed. Body armor, let me just, oh no, this is not an ivory tower, this is a Dendrobate. So Dendrobate, this is excellent for most poison builds. Grants us increased chance to poison because it has socketed gems are supported by level 10 chance to poison. This caps our chance to poison, and then increased damage with poison if you have at least 300 dexterity. This is very important. Please make sure you have enough dexterity. You should easily be able to reach that 300 dex threshold to get that. Also grants us a good amount of energy shield and all elemental resistances, and increased poison duration with at least 150 intelligence, which is less important, but the main thing is that 300 dex breakpoint that you need to hit. Perfect chest. And then for our ring, we're going for a Ventor's. This is a very, I don't know, like a very mid Ventor's. I haven't even blessed it up, which is kind of cringe. You can get a decent Ventor's for about a divine, even less. This one, I think probably costs, let's see, you can get one exactly like this for about a divine or two. You can get a bit less life and a bit increased item quantity or slightly different resistances. Then for our other ring, Ming's Heart, this grants us Fizz as extra chaos. We are using Blade Vortex, which does Fizz, so Fizz as extra chaos. This is a massive damage boost. Also grants us a huge amount of chaos resistance. What you want to do is get one of these with a decent roll on the physical as extra chaos, and then you are going to buy 20 catalysts, noxious catalysts, these guys over here. Adds quality that enhances physical and chaos damage modifiers on a ring, amulet, or belt. You need to buy 20 of these. You're going to apply it to your Mings, and that's going to push up that Fizz as extra chaos from 60, if it's perfectly rolled, up to 72. I did try and use a second Ventor's like this, and I started dying a bit, and my damage drop-off was fairly noticeable, so look, you can test it if you want to use a second Ventor's, but I would recommend using Ming's because this just gives us so much damage, so much chaos resistance. It's perfect. As for our helmet, this is the only piece of gear on this build that you're going to have to craft other than the amulet. But what you want to get is something with fractured increased rarity of items found. You don't have to get a perfect roll like this, but what you do want to make sure is that you have a fractured increased rarity of items found suffix, not a prefix. And then what you're going to do is you're going to use Essence of Loathing, which I have over here. Essence of Loathing, and you're going to hit it until you get an open suffix, and preferably if you can get prefixes like I have. Life, increased rarity are excellent, but you mainly want to have that open suffix because you want to bench on this increased rarity of items dropped by slain, rare, or unique enemies. Now, Essences of Loathing are very expensive, but you will notice here that I have 30 unreserved mana. So we don't actually need to use as high a tier. You can use Shrieking Loathings, which are going to be more than half as cheap. So you just need, I believe, I would need to check POB. You could possibly even use Shrieking, but I'm not 100% sure. But this grants us increased mana reservation efficiency of skills. These are expensive, but if you get the lower tier ones, it'll be a lot cheaper. As for the implicits, increased mana reservation efficiency of skills. Again, you don't need a super high tier of this. You can even just use the lesser Eldritch Ichor, these little blue guys, to get that. And then the other one is going to be increased area of effect, which again, I need to bless up to 12%. Those you can get from either lesser, greater, or grand. I would probably just use greater. You're going to still get about 10% increased area of effect. But this helmet, if you get a slightly lower roll on that fracture, and again, all of these are linked in the shopping list, which is linked in the description, you could get a base like this for about 30C to a divine, maybe less, maybe more, and then you can buy a couple of divines of Essences of Loathing, either Shrieking or Screaming even, and then hit it, get your implicits like that. So I would say this helmet probably costs about 2 divines to make, maybe a little bit less. So that's the only thing we need to craft. And then our Amber Amulet, we also need to craft, but this one, all I did was bought this fracture. You can get a fracture like this for about a divine, and then you want to add on some quality with the form of these little guys. Intrinsic Catalyst. If it's magic, you're gonna have to apply 10 of these to increase your attribute modifiers, and then you just want to grab some essences like Sorrow or Rage. I would recommend using Rage, and then keep using it until you get enough strength or dexterity. This I actually need to recraft. We could just do it right now. So I don't need, I don't have enough. This, I am thoroughly overcapped on dexterity. I don't need that much. So this, I actually need to recraft to instead have increased strength and all attributes. So the modifiers you're looking for on this are going to be all attributes, strength, possibly some dexterity if you need it, but you probably won't. And then life, and preferably an open prefix. We are going to have to recraft this, but let's see if we can hit an open prefix. Nope, rip life. Don't worry, it needs to be recrafted. And then what you want to do is craft on this. This is increased area effect. The area damage does not matter, but increased area effect is great. So this is the kind of thing we want to make for our thing. As for our gem links, it's going to be fairly straightforward. Blade Vortex, you can use a level 2120, or you can use a level 20 Vaal Blade Vortex with 20% quality. If you're rich, you can get a 2120 Vaal Blade Vortex. And then the rest of the links are pretty cheap. Awaken Void Manipulation, Awaken Deadly Ailments. You can save currency by using non-awakened versions of these gems. Unleash, very important, need to get an Unleash. Efficacy, and then item rarity support. This grants us 69 to 70% increased rarity of items dropped from slain enemies. You can, if you feel like you're struggling with damage, use Unbound Ailments, but in tier 7 maps, I really don't feel like we need it. So increased item rarity support. As for our helmet and our auras, we're using Grace, Herald of Agony, Determination, linked with Enlighten. Enlighten level 3 is about 3.5 divines. It is necessary for the build. I think maybe if you're on a budget, you could get rid of that and then get these 3 points for increased mana reservation efficiency of skills, but then you're gonna have to drop 3 points somewhere on the tree and it's a bit of a mess. So I would rather just get this Enlighten level 3. If you are very, very greedy, you can use Haste instead of Determination. I would not recommend it. Some of those Abyss mods, even in tier 7 maps, can hit really hard, and without this, your Fizz mitigation is next to nothing, and you could just get slapped over and over and over. And what's really bad is when you're in the Wildwood trying to farm up your wisps, and then something kills you, you've kind of semi-bricked your map. So Determination, I feel like, is better. As for our other auras, Herald of Purity grants us increased damage, also summons some little Sentinels of Purity, which are, in a weird way, defensive because it draws aggro to those instead of you. And then Vitality. Vitality level 1. You do not need to level up this gem unless you have a whole lot of extra mana unreserved. But the reason we are using this, just at level 1, is that we are using a Watcher's Eye. And this is very important. Gain 28 life per enemy hit while affected by Vitality. This is massive, massive, massive life recovery. When mapping, you're going to see that your life pool just jumps up constantly as you hit monsters, because Blade Vortex has a very, very high hit rate. And if you're hitting lots of monsters, you're getting tons of life recovery like that. So just a level 1 Vitality and this Watcher's Eye are required. As for this, Plague Bearer linked with increased area of effect support. And then over here, Whirling Blades linked with faster attacks. And then Flame Dash as a secondary movement skill. This is a Vaal Haste that I recently just put in. It feels pretty good to me. If you are using Vaal Blade Vortex, I would just completely drop this. I wouldn't add it in. If you are using normal Blade Vortex, then try using Vaal Haste. It's an extra button, but when it's active, grants you increased attack costs and movement speed while it's active. And we are taking this non-curse aura skills have 50% increased duration, so it will last for at least a somewhat decent amount of time. If you don't want to use this and you have a little bit of extra reservation, you can slot in a Defiance banner, but I felt like this just it pushed our reservation efficiency a little bit too hard, and what we were getting for it just wasn't enough. As for the rest of gems, Malevolence, Inspiration, and Divine Blessing, if you have a decent ES pool, you could swap out this Inspiration for an increased duration support, but then the cost is going to be a little bit higher. However, actually, I think I can get away with that. With this, then our aura lasts 26 seconds, or probably even longer if that was a higher level. So if you feel like you can get away with it and you have enough energy shield, then you can use increased duration support instead of Inspiration. As for the other links, Withering Step, we're going to be placing this on our left click. This grants us Elusive, which makes us move faster, get hit less. It also grants us phasing, but other than that, we're using Immortal Call linked with caster and damage taken just for a bit more survivability. Looking at the rest of the tree, let's look at what's important. So Stormshroud, how are we getting Ailment immune? We are using Stormshroud. Modifiers to chance to avoid being shocked apply to all elemental ailments. This gem, this jewel is sitting at 50 Chaos Orbs. It's very cheap. You can even get a worse roll for 50 Chaos. All right. And then in order to top up our shock avoidance, we are using jewels like this. These are Abyss jewels with chance to avoid being shocked. We have 2 of these, one here and one here. That tops off our chance to avoid being shocked. Other modifiers that are good on these would be life, chance to gain phasing on kill, things like that, resistances, attributes, whatever you need. And then we don't actually need exactly 50% and 50% on these, so you can get a slightly lower roll on the chance to avoid being shocked because we are grabbing this wheel, which grants us chance to avoid elemental ailments. This wheel grants us 20% chance to avoid elemental ailments, so 20, and then you just need another 40 and 40 to get that 100% chance to avoid being shocked, which means you are now Ignite, Freeze, Chill, and Shock immune. As for this large cluster, this is very cheap. Furious Assault, Ironbreaker, Master Fundamentals, bit more attack and cast speed, physical damage, same over here, physical damage, elemental resistances. And then over here, these are Flask Effect duration medium clusters. And the most important one is going to be Spiked Concoction. You want to have this on at least one of your notables. Alchemist Genius increases flask charges gained by 20% and flask effect by 10% for 4 seconds. This is really, really good. On this side, Brood for Potency is really nice. Fasting is really nice. Special Reserve is really nice. I actually got a very nice blend of all of these. So these, again, there is a link for these in the shopping list. I've gone over Stormshroud. I've gone over the Watcher's Eye. Then this large thread of hope, this costs about 4 divines, probably a little bit more with a decent minus all res roll. I would say in the realm of 4 to 5 divines, but this saves us tons of points. It's well worth the money. It lets us hit life, it lets us hit damage over time multiplier and life regen, it lets us hit flask charges used, and flasks have increased effect on me, and then skill effect duration, chaos dot. This is a wonderful, wonderful large cluster. It's about 5 divines, but super worth it. As for the rest of the tree, it's pretty straightforward. If you are maybe a little bit lower level and you a bit point starved, what you can do is maybe go like this on the tree. Let me just grab this. What you can do is instead path down from the top and refund these points. This like that. We are not going to be suppression capped anymore now. Now we're sitting at 84%, but you can just go spell suppression lucky, something like that. So this is simulating a level 91 version of the build. It's okay. Also important, you do want to have phasing on kill somewhere. So if you don't have this jewel with a chance to gain phasing on kill, you want to grab this 1 point. You can also get phasing on kill on your charms, which we are going to go over now. So charms, most important things, you want to have at least one of these increase poison duration for each poison you've inflicted recently up to a maximum of 100%. This is really good for single target. This at least one, I think this rolls up to 3%. Yeah, at 2 to 3%, get one of these. If you can get 2, get 2. As for suffixes, spell suppression is excellent. Over here, again, spell suppression and onslaught. Onslaught, very important, grants us increased attack, cast, and movement speed. Previously, I was using a silver flask to give us onslaught, but it was way too greedy and I was just dying. So instead, chance to gain onslaught, spell suppression, and then for our last charm, and this is super important, super important. Cursed enemies you or your minions kill have a chance to explode, dealing a quarter of their maximum life as chaos damage. This is why we have to have this cursed enemies with despair on hit on our gloves. So as our BV hits enemies, it's cursing them, and then they have a 25% chance to explode. Well, a 13% chance to explode. The explodey charms are at about 1.3 divine. No, they're sitting at a good roll, about 1.5 divines. At 10%, you can get them for about 100 chaos. So try and get a decent roll on one of these. As for suffixes, just see what you can find. But if you get a good suffix with explode, it's going to be very expensive. But this is critical. You need this. Absolutely 100% need this. Pay attention to the charms. These are important. You can supplement the suffixes with other things you need. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's reallocate the points that are right. You can find all the information in this video linked in the description. There will be the shopping list. I'll also include Garatha's MF strategy, where he goes over tier 7 magic finding. And yeah, here's the pub. It has all the things that you need, all the items. I've kept it simple. This is for a level 97 tree, but just remember you can drop some points if you need. Sitting at about 3 million damage with a decent EHP. I'm not dying too much in these lower tier maps. Anyway, if you have any questions, be sure to join the Discord. There is a channel specifically for the BV build. I will try my best to pay attention to that and respond to people. But yeah, let me know what you think. Have you been MFing? Have you been looking for a budget MF build? Does this look like your cup of tea? Have a wonderful day, everyone. Stay safe. Catch you in the next video. Bye-bye.
It's branching exile. You're making me nervous.